You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
TIAA is on a mission. Why? Because 54% of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So in collaboration with big-name artists like Wyclef Jean, TIAA released Paper Right, new music inspiring a new financial future. With 100% of streaming sales going to a nonprofit that teaches students how to invest. Stream Paper Right now and help close the gap.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt Migaki, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped an amazing episode with Ron Layani of RoarCal. There's this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers!
What is up, good people? Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast. Yeah, we're here. We're knocking on the door of episode 400. Episode 400. That's wild. And there's way more over on Patreon, too. That is crazy. And I didn't just say that just to plug Patreon. I was just kind of sitting here wondering how in the world I've made a career out of blabbering on the internet. But I guess it's really not that big of a mystery. It is thanks to you. Thank you so much to everybody who has clicked on this. I'm still flabbergasted. That number is it's weird to me. That many episodes, this many years in, it's crazy that this has worked out the way that it has, and it's all thanks to you. So thank you so much. And yeah, I know I say that every week, but seriously, this is crazy. Thank you for enabling me to do this. The fact that you're listening to this right now, that's the reason. So thank you very much. Now, let's get into this week's episode. This week, I'm talking to Justyna Kelley and Eddie Gore. They work together doing a lot of different projects together in Nashville, Tennessee. Justyna is a pop artist. She comes from a country music family, and she's just very passionate about songwriting, music, artistic stuff, and she's a very, very cool person. So she was really cool to talk to. We started the episode focused on her and her story, and then she brought in Eddie towards the end, and I actually should genuinely get him on by himself at some point because he was a very interesting dude too. But them two together, they're the dream team. They are making some cool stuff. They work on so many projects together. They work with Steve Cropper on like a wide variety of things. And I'm sure you've heard that name before. And if you haven't, the Google machine is your friend. But seriously, I'm just blabbering at this point. Let's get into this episode with Justyna and Eddie. I think you're really going to enjoy it. This is a great conversation. Let's just dive in. Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff, occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland. With me today, I have Justyna Kelley. How's it going?
It's going good. How are ya?
I'm pretty good. I've been looking forward to this chat. Sorry we had to postpone. I had the Namthrax, so so it goes.
Nampocalypse.
Yeah, it was rough. But yeah, I've been excited to have this chat. We met on Instagram, as so many of these things often happen these days. And I just wanted to dive into your story. Like, when did you get started with music? Obviously, it's a massive part of your life. You are an artist on your own, but you also run a studio. I want to get the whole backstory back from when you first started as a kid, I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, I was born and raised in Nashville. And grew up in the country music scene because my mom is a country music singer and hit songwriter. So that was the norm growing up. My mom's an artist. She writes on Music Row. We're having jam sessions at the house. We're, going out on tour with her, going backstage at all of her shows. So it was just really natural for me and my sister as well to get into the music industry and write and make music.
Mm-hmm. So did it ever like, I mean, growing up in Nashville is like just a different thing altogether. I'm sure a lot of the people you were associated with, that was totally normal. But at what age did you realize that that wasn't most people's
Ooh,
experience?
that's a good question. Um, yeah, because a lot of the people I went to school with, their parents were songwriters or artists, or it was just normal, so they didn't think anything of it. But I guess it was when I started, maybe it was when I moved to New York City when I was in college. And, people didn't really, I would tell them where I'm from. I'm from Nashville. And they were like, all they know about Nashville is that it's Music City.
Mm-hmm.
Back, a couple years ago until recently, people didn't really know as much about Nashville, I think. It's just
Yeah.
really in the last 10, 15 years that it's blown up in the public consciousness and, people want to come here and visit. But maybe when I moved to New York City, it was like, wait, what's country music? What's, like
What?
no one knew
What?
who my mom was or a lot of country radio.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Yes, I born and raised here in Oregon, but I've always had a weird connection to Nashville. I don't know if I've actually told this part of the story before on the
Ooh,
podcast, but my
do
grandma
tell.
used to do something called home interiors. And
Oh.
I know that sounds very generic, like she's an interior designer. No, this was a brand of like candles and statues and like weird thing, not necessarily weird, but things you would decorate your house with. And she was a representative for this company, and she did so well with it. Every year they would go back to Nashville this is like in the 90s.
Oh my gosh.
And I was always like, that was their big, I don't know,
Like the
like
headquarters?
celebration of,
Or-
I don't know if it was their headquarters or if I know they like would do stuff at like the Opryland Hotel and like have an event there of some sort. So I always knew she was going back there. And then one year I was probably 11 or so. Maybe I was a little older, somewhere in that ballpark. But we went with them. And so I got to go down on Broadway when it was a lot more old school,
Oh my
went into
gosh.
Tootsie's as like a little kid and like all that stuff. So Nashville's just always been this thing that has been a part of my life. And now it's like my home away from home. I go there multiple times a year for the String Joy stuff. And it's been weird to watch it progress so quickly. And where, like you were talking about, people would be like, what's Nashville?
Yeah.
Now Nashville is like, if you're in music, you're in New York, LA, or Nashville, pretty much. I mean, you can do music anywhere in the world, but that's the home basis for all this now, and everybody knows it.
Yeah, this is the place to be now. And, I lived in New York for a little bit. I lived in LA for a little bit as well. And everyone I knew from those places has all moved here now.
Right.
So all my friends from over the years doing music, are here in Nashville, which is cool. But what did you think of Nashville back then?
Back then, it was, to me, I was a little kid. I grew up with country music similarly. Like, my parents weren't performers or anything, but that was everything. That's all that was playing in the house. And
Nice.
That's what my grandparents listened to. That was my main exposure to music through that time. My dad's like number one Waylon Jennings fan, so that was always important, growing up, and Merle Haggard and things like that. That was like what I totally grew up with. So,
Like
and then
outlaw
he was
country.
really, like I still love all that stuff too.
Heck yeah.
Absolutely. But going to Nashville, it was like, I didn't know like, oh, what's Bakersfield? Like, I didn't know. I was too young to understand. I just thought, oh, all country music comes from this place,
This mythical land.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's kind of weird because, I got started doing the podcast and all of this music gear stuff. And kind of before, it was like about 2 years before I was able to get into it full time, my whole family went back there just for a regular vacation.
Oh, nice.
And that was right before the explosion. So then just like a year and a half, 2 years later, it was Bridesmaidville and like all the other things. But it wasn't that.
Yeah.
I got to see it kind of like evolve over the years. So yeah, it's just a different.
Wow. It's a totally different thing now. But I was going to say, your dad might be excited to know that here at RCA Studios, Waylon Jennings recorded here, as well as a bunch. Well, you probably know the history about RCA Studios here, but there's pictures of Waylon and Willie Nelson and all those guys up and down the halls here.
It's fantastic. I've been in Studio B for that tour that they do, and it's one of the coolest experiences for a music fan. I think everybody should go do that if they're in town. It's so cool.
So cool.
How did excuse me? How did you get to be working in the studio? Like, seems like you're there every day, if I'm not mistaken. You kind of run part of it. It seems like what's the relationship there? How's that happened?
Well, that's a cool story. So, I'll kind of go back again. I was, doing the artist thing, putting out music, touring, and it took me to Paris, France, where I lived for 5 years. But while I was kind of back and forth going abroad, I started working with this guy, Eddie Gore, who became a really good friend of mine. And we were writing some really cool music for film and TV, stuff like that. And so cool. It was like the first thing we ever wrote got on NCIS. And we were like, wait, this works. We work well together. And we started also writing some songs for my artist project, which a lot of those songs are actually on the album, my new album that's on the French label. That's out right now, actually, in France. But so I was working back and forth with Eddie. I was traveling back and forth from Nashville to Paris, of all things. And Eddie actually works with this guy named Steve Cropper for 30 years. So Eddie's been Steve Cropper's right-hand man. And Steve Cropper. Yes. I'm guessing most of the listeners do. If you don't, a quick Google will inform you. Yes. For those of you who don't know. He's one of the dudes. Yes. Yeah. We'll say he wrote Sitting on the Dock of the Bay and many others. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, member of the Blues Brothers, et cetera, et cetera. Massive. Yes. So Eddie and Steve were, thick as thieves, worked together for years. And we all decided to join forces. This is about 7 years ago when Eddie and I launched our production company, and we moved into RCA Studios. So cool. And just wanting to really, just combine all of our talents. Eddie's a big time, engineer, producer, arranger. I was coming from the artist side, songwriter, musician, singer, all that. Also a producer. And Cropper's resume speaks for himself. And so we moved into the studio, and we've been here ever since. How long have you been doing that? Well, I started in that space anyway. Here we've been here for it's actually been almost 8 years now. Wow. That's incredible. I know. Going strong. So cool. Going strong. Yeah. But it's one of those things where, when you do something, but you don't realize you're doing it. Like, yes. Right? Like I had Pro Tools, and I was like recording stuff, and then I was starting to play MIDI bass, and then I was, farming out the drums from my friends, and like, wait, I guess I'm a producer? You know? I guess, right? I guess this is what this is called. So I was a producer, back almost starting out, and I didn't realize it. And then I was like, wait, I actually am a producer, and I'm going to own this and make a business out of it. Producing is one of those weird things. As a kid, obviously, I listened to a lot of music and, laid on the floor with my CD packets open and reading all of the liner notes. And every time I would see producer or hear the word producer, I was like, what is that? What does that mean? And then as you grow up and you work in this space a little bit longer, you realize the reason it's kind of a blanket term is because it can mean lots of different things, depending on the genre, depending on, what the artist is looking for in a producer. It's one of the vaguest job titles, I think, of all time. But what does it mean for you? That is true. Well, for me, gosh, I think you're right. I think it just means so many different things. for me, I mean, it's kind of like the director of a movie.
Mm-hmm.
You're setting up all the shots. You oversee almost every aspect of the creative process. You're casting actors. We cast the musicians.
Mm-hmm.
We help. A lot of times we help with writing. Songwriting. Most times, I would say we help if we're not writing with our artists or with our clients or for our clients. We are kind of rebuilding songs or rearranging them. So I would just say it's a very creative job, and that's the most fun. But then also, there's the mixing as well. Gosh, there's so much that goes into it. It's really customized. It depends on the artist. It depends on the project, what the project needs. You kind of have to be flexible, right?
Yeah, totally.
I think so.
Do you have a favorite part of the process as far as production goes? It's like, I really like programming drums, or I really like, mixing, or whatever part you're talking about. Is there any portion of that excites you?
Oh, yeah. Well, I can say that the mixing is not my favorite part.
That's fair.
Right? Fair. That's the part that is very tedious. There are parts of it that can be fun, but I would say my favorite part is I love when the band is in. So this is our tracking room.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can see there's a drum kit back here. I've got a bunch of the guitars sitting out. I might show those to you in a little bit. But
sweet.
Yeah, I think when the band's here and the energy is here and you don't really know what's going to happen. You have an idea in your head, you have references, or you have parts in your head, but you're really guiding this creative process. And if you've got really great, talented people, in the room, real magic can truly happen.
Totally. There's something about, everybody jamming together, and we've all experienced it at some point or another where everything just clicks and the vibe's right and everybody's on the same wavelength and everything is going right. And there's nothing like that feeling. I think that's what we all look for every time we try to create. And it doesn't always happen, but if it happened every time, it wouldn't be as special when it does.
That's so true. Yeah. I mean, if you I think that's part of developing as an artist too, as you start to know more what you like, or you start to know the people that you create the best with, or where the good vibes are flowing. And I think you can optimize the creative process and the creative experience that way.
100%. Totally.
Yeah.
Going back a little bit to the childhood days. We kind of jumped right from that to modern times, but let's go back a little bit. What was the first instrument that you picked up?
My guitar.
Ah, convenient.
Yes, very convenient. Well, actually, it was my mom's guitar, her Martin.
Yeah. Oh, that's quite a starter.
Right? I know. That was my starter guitar. Can you believe it?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you started picking that up. Did you just felt a pull to it? Were you like, I want to play guitar, or it just happened to be around? So that's what was there. What was that like for you?
I think it was the second. It was just, I felt it was there, and I was like, well, my mom was such a great writer and singer, so I was such a big fan of my mom's. And I remember thinking back in the day, I really want to be like my mom. I really want to be a great songwriter, especially. But she set the bar so high that for a long time, I wasn't sure if I could do it, actually. And it was something that it took a while for me to discover and to get really comfortable with, because my sister's a really great songwriter too. And she just had real natural ability kind of from the start. But it took me a while to give myself permission to go further with it. Because then I really got into acting as well. So I was doing a lot of theater, and I ended up doing film and commercials and stuff when I was a kid. But my desire, my true passion was always with the music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the songwriting.
It's weird how we do that, and even if we have all the encouragement in the world, sometimes the giving yourself permission to do things. It even took me until like the last maybe 10 years to like fully give myself permission to do whatever I want to do musically. I was just kind of viewed as like, oh, I'm just messing around. I'm just playing. I'm not really a real insert whatever thing here. And then I realized that's kind of dumb. And I would never think that about somebody else.
Right.
If I saw somebody else messing around and recording and writing and stretching their wings, you know, and trying to figure out their place in this musical landscape, I wouldn't be like, well, they're not a real guitar player. So it took me a while to apply that same logic to myself. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. I don't know what that's about, but
I think
hopefully
you're
whoever's
right.
listening to this can, you know, give themselves permission to do whatever they're wanting to do.
I think so, Blake. I think it's a universal thing. And I think, you know, sometimes we have this little voice in our heads, or maybe this little tendency to maybe want to sabotage something, or just not fully put ourselves out there, because you really have to put yourself out there. And that's not easy to do. And sometimes it can be, just easier to kind of sit back, because that's what you can control, right? You can control not doing anything, but you can't control what happens once you put something out there. And that's the scary part, I think. So I think just getting comfortable with that unknowing, right? The unknown.
Well, and the more you put it out there, whatever that happens to be, the more comfortable you get with doing it. I used to like never, when I started this podcast, I was never on camera. I did not like being on camera, and now it's like not a big deal.
You're
at
natural.
All. For a while, thank you. It very much didn't feel natural at the time, but now it's just this is part of the job. This is what you do. You turn the camera on, you do your thing. But I think it's important to reiterate, you never get to like experience new things by not putting stuff out there. I had all the reason in the world to not want to put this show out and not do this. But when I finally did and took the leap, it completely changed my life. And that may be a little different for whoever's listening to this, but you're not going to be in a worse position by putting your music out for people to hear it. Like at best, you'll be neutral. Or at worst, you'll be neutral, rather, you know? And on the high side, who knows what could happen?
And you know what we say as producers? Like when we're talking to artists and, you know, we're just trying to talk them through the process. I mean, there's an audience for whatever you have to say or do. And it's, you know, it's our jobs as producers, or you know, it's your job as an artist, my job as an artist, to put it out there and to find my audience, because it's out there. You know, it might be, you know, it might be 10,000 people. It might be 10 million people. You just don't know until you put it out there. So that's the first step. That's the most important.
100%. And it's never been easier. Now it's never been more crowded, but this gets into a topic that I've kind of, I don't know if rant is the right word, but discussed.
Go for it.
On this show quite a bit.
Hi, I'm Vincent, and I'm here to talk about the Mercury X. My dad's always going on and on about how cool Maris is. He really went off on one about the Mercury X the other day. He said something about a 4,800 hertz sample rate and 99 preset locations in 33 banks, and something along the lines of the most advanced reverb pedal ever devised by man? That's all true, but I only care about one thing. This pedal sounds sick. So make sure you check out the Mercury X and all the other fine products at maris.us, as well as fine retailers worldwide. All right, Dad, now can I have my Pocky?
How exactly do artists get their music on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, all these services? How in the world do you get your music there? Well, in the past, you had to use something called a record label. But these days, you can use DistroKid. DistroKid is the absolute easiest way to get your music up on streaming services, and it's the most affordable way to do so. Not only do plans start at $22.99 for the entire year, that's less than $2 a month, DistroKid also does not take a cut of your streaming revenue, unlike some other services out there. Even better if you sign up by going to tonemob.com/distrokid. That's tonemob.com/distrokid. One more time, that's tonemob.com/distrokid. You'll get 30% off. That's right, 30% off their already extremely reasonable prices. So go to tonemob.com/distrokid and get your music out there. We are brought to you today by Sweetwater, specifically the Gear Exchange. You may have heard about this. This is a place where you can go to buy and sell your used gear. Maybe you got a pedal over there that's just kind of collecting dust. Maybe there's something you've been eyeing from the Sweetwater catalog. Well, right now is a great time to turn that unused gear into something you're actually going to use. Even better, if you sell on the Gear Exchange, you can keep 100% of the sale as long as you choose a Sweetwater gift card as your payout method. That is not too shabby because, let's be honest, most of this buying and selling we do is just to fund new gear purchases, and that is a great way to reach a wide variety of customers and keep 100% in your pocket, or rather on your pedal board. So go check out the Sweetwater Gear Exchange and turn that unused gear into something that's actually going to help you write that next huge riff. It's infinitely easier, even though it's more crowded, to get your music or your art seen and heard now than it ever has been. You know, if you go back, people are like, oh, only a certain small percentage of artists really make it. Well, I mean, only a certain small percentage of artists have ever made it, ever. Like, it wasn't easier from the time, you know, rock and roll started to now. It wasn't easier in the 70s. You had to go out and grind and play every single show you could possibly find, and the odds that people would never hear of you again were extremely high. And now you can reach infinitely more people from places you never would have ever even been able to reach, just by continuing to put stuff out there on the interwebs. And you never know what that might take, you know, what that might form into. So while it's crowded, it's actually never been easier, in my opinion. Some people push back on that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. I agree with you that, I mean, it is a little saturated, you know, the market. There's so much music going out there. But like I said, I mean, if you have something to say, I mean, we're all creative beings. We're all searching for connection. We all need creative outlets. You just got to put it out there. That's just what I always believe. I truly believe that.
Yeah.
Just find a way to reach people.
100%.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go backwards a little bit again, going back to the Martin. So you grew up in the country music scene, and now I see you've got, you know, electric guitars around you and everything. You eventually, this record,
my Taylor.
Oh, what do you got there? Yeah, and the Taylor. Oh, I couldn't. It was a little bit out of frame for me on this platform we're using. Got it. But you eventually got into, like, your newest record is a pop record, but you grew up in the country music scene. And I know those two genres are actually more related than maybe country fans want to admit.
Right. Yes.
But what made you go that direction versus sticking with the family tradition, so to speak?
So country, to be honest, country will always be in my bones, I guess, because this is the world I grew up in. Literally. Yeah. Yes. I owe so much of my songwriting sensibilities and instincts to country songwriting, which, I mean, let's be honest, some of the best written songs are country songs.
100%.
The best storytelling. Yeah. So I was so lucky that I really got that heritage and that desire for storytelling. and, the structure of a song and all that. So that's always going to be with me. And I'll always love country music and bluegrass music.
Mm-hmm.
But I always had this little thing inside me that was more maybe like an international flair or a desire to see the world. And I love world music. I love jazz. I love like Brazilian music. I love singing
Mm-hmm.
in Portuguese and French and all these different languages. And I don't know where that came from, but I think my passion about doing my own music, because I've written for so many different people and so many different projects and along the way, but for my own music, I love to mix that organic kind of rootsy side of me with something a little bit more international or cosmopolitan or, something a little bit more modern and, something with some cool tracks and a cool beat. So I love mixing those two elements, basically.
It's probably a good segue to getting to my question about like going to Paris. How did you end up deciding that France was the place? I mean, it's kind of funny living in Music City your whole life, but getting your, I'm thinking your first singles on French radio versus American. How did that whole process happen? I know obviously you lived over there for a while, but what pulled you over there, and then how did that unfold?
I wonder if this is something that others can relate to as well, but when you're from somewhere, sometimes you just want to leave. You just want to get out, right? Like if it's too close or it's too familiar, you maybe take it for granted. You want to explore other places. And that was my story for sure. Growing up in Nashville, and this is, 20 years ago, there was not much going on in, there was not really an international scene. There wasn't really a world music scene. There wasn't a lot going on for, I guess, like a young girl. And I always thought, gosh, I want to see New York. I want to see LA. I want to live in France. I want to live in all these other places. And I think that's how I, thought I kind of want to get out of Nashville. It's kind of crazy to say. I mean, but I was always coming back. I mean, even when I lived in LA for 4 years, I was always coming back here. I mean, this is where all the greatest songwriters live. This is where all the greatest guitar players live. And even if it wasn't known for that internationally until recently, I mean, that's how it is.
Yeah.
So
very true.
And you know what? I think it takes also living somewhere else to appreciate where you're from.
Yes, I think so. I've had that more in recent times where I've lived here my whole life, and I've definitely traveled. I've definitely been to other places, but it wasn't until I started having friends that were like on tour or something, which is all came from the podcast. They'd come through town and be like, "Hey, let's go get something to eat. Oh, I know this great place in this random, other town. Let's go." And we'd be driving through places that I drove through my entire life. And they're all looking around like, "It is beautiful here. It is gorgeous." And I'm like, it is actually. But to me, because it was just where I grew up, it's like, it's trees and stuff. Like, like what again? But, going back east and going to other places, done a little bit in Europe. And it's like, oh, actually, I totally took this place for granted in a lot of ways, especially as a kid. I was like, it's Oregon, whatever. Like,
right?
Who cares?
Oh my gosh. And then here's me. I've never been to Oregon and I'm dying to go.
I got some places to show you. It's
oh my gosh.
cool.
I need your, top 10.
Oh, it's going to be all food.
Perfect.
So,
Foodie.
Yes. Oh, that's why I love Nashville so much. I gotta go.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't had
the hot chicken.
Yet,
have you had the hot chicken?
Oh, I have. Oh yeah. Prince's is my preferred hot chicken place there.
Interesting.
I love Prince's. It's the OG.
Yeah.
Did you ever go to it when it was in its old spot where it's now in a new, like, nicer, better location, but
Oh.
a car drove through the old one.
Oh, what?
So yeah, nobody was hurt from what I gather, but a car literally like drove through the building where they used to be.
Oh my, I didn't
And so now they're
hear this news.
yeah, well,
Oh my
it's weird
gosh.
because I'm so obsessed with it. We got an Airbnb that was like close to it
Oh,
the
nice.
few times that we'd go. And I was like, all right, we're going to get more hot chick. Why is this danger tape all over? What happened to
Oh, right.
Prince's?
Like the
Yeah.
like the crime scene tape.
Yep, exactly.
Holy cannoli.
Yeah, a car drove through it. So, but yeah, if you haven't been to Prince's, I highly recommend it. It's very good. And
Yes.
Hattie B's is good too, but Prince's is the original.
Right. I've
So.
been to the new spot, and I've been to Hattie
Mhm.
B's as well. But there's always a line. Have you seen that? I mean, there's just a line down the block because it's right up here.
Yes.
It's right on, right off of Music Row.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's nuts.
It's very good.
It is very
It's
good.
very good.
People love their
Yeah.
hot chicken.
I love it. It's good
Yes.
stuff. So let's talk about some of the guitars that you've surrounded yourself with. What's
Oh, yeah.
what's your go-to? What do you grab
Well-
first typically?
My go-to is definitely my I call her my baby Taylor. Her name's Rosalind.
Nice.
So
Oh,
she's made
beautiful.
of Indian rosewood. So
Back and sides. Okay, yeah.
So
Mhm.
beautiful. So, I had to call her Rosie. So it's Rosie for short.
Yes, of course.
Yes. So this is Rosie, my GC8. I always loved this slotted headstock.
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting because obviously this is usually just with the classical guitars,
Mm-hmm.
the gut string, but she's a steel string, and I feel like it makes the resonance maybe a little bit more open. This could be in my head, but I just think.
Ooh, that does sound nice.
So when I first saw her, okay, here's a story. I used to work at Guitar Center. Didn't we
Okay.
all? So many of
At
us.
some point, I think it's so many people. So
right?
many people.
Yes.
Mhm.
Maybe like 75% of us. But I used to work in Guitar Center in college, and I would always go into the acoustic room, of course. And I saw, because she's not my first guitar. My first guitar was a Mahogany Martin.
Awesome.
Yes. Very beautiful as well. Her name's Gypsy. She's at home. But when I was working at Guitar Center one day, I saw Rosie. And I went in. I mean, just every day I would go in and I would start playing her. I would always go right to her. And I started getting all these song ideas. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's a sign.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was just getting so inspired. I was like, I've got to have this guitar. I can't stop writing songs. I can't stop the flow of inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how and of course I was working at Guitar Center, so I got the good, the employee discount.
Employee discount.
Heck
yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
You had to
You
take
gotta
advantage.
get that.
You got to get that. Yeah. And it's so funny because, my mom says every guitar has a certain amount of songs in it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of
That
a cool
reminds
philosophy.
me of a story, and I don't know if it's true, but the first time I heard it was on this podcast, and it was Frank from My Chemical Romance actually is the one who told me the story. So he was saying, he didn't know if it was true, but it's still a great story, that Tom Waits was coming into this guitar shop like every day for a little while, and he'd go up to this one guitar and he'd like hold it and look at it and play it and put it back. He'd come in and he'd hold it and look at it, and the employees didn't want to bother him, even though it's like, oh, it's Tom Waits. Whoa, like, cool. But they just left him alone. And then, after several days of him coming in, like looking at this one guitar, somebody came up to him and was like, hey, we've noticed that you check this out every single day. Do you want to take it home? Maybe we can make you a deal or whatever. And he's like, nah, this one doesn't have any more songs in it. And then he just never came back.
I just got chills. I was not expecting that.
I wasn't either.
He was coming in and writing songs on this guitar.
Yeah, possibly so. At least getting ideas.
Or getting some
for
ideas.
Sure. Yeah. But he's like, this one doesn't have any more songs in it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got to tell my mom that. She's going to freak. Because she loves Tom Waits too.
I love me some Tom Waits. I've been on some binges for sure. He's incredible.
He's written so many songs that I didn't realize he wrote.
Mm-hmm.
And
he's one of those people.
He's one of those people. And it makes me so angry in a good way. Like, this guy, share some talent, dude. Come on.
Dude, I could use some of that. Just give me 1%. Just give me 1%.
Just spread it around a little bit. He wrote this song. Did you ever hear the Alison Krauss, Robert Plant album?
I did, yes.
Yeah, the Americana one.
He write one of those songs?
He wrote my favorite song on the album, and I was just obsessing over this song, The Trampled Rose. It goes from 4/4 into 5/4. It's crazy. It's got this crazy meter that doesn't make sense, but it's perfect for the song. And lo and behold, freaking Tom Waits wrote it.
I did not know that. I've listened to that album several times. I had no idea. I know the song you're talking about.
Yes.
So I'll be doing a little bit of re-listening later.
That's right.
Thank you for that information.
Go back into the archives and check that one out because, that's a fave.
Nice. So now that you got your guitar in your hand there, maybe now's a good time to dive into your personal. We've talked about how you work with artists and how you do some of that stuff. But when you sit down to write for yourself, do you sit down with intention, or do you let the ideas come to you, or what does your personal writing process look like?
This is an interesting question, and one that I get a lot. And I wish I could put it in a bottle. But it's another one of those things where it's different every time. Mm-hmm. And when I'm going into a co-write, I love to co-write. That's the Nashville way. Of course. That's how I cut my teeth on songwriting is, the Nashville co-write, you meet at 10, break for lunch, go until 5. But when I go into a co-write, I do like to feel like I'm prepared, like I've got a great idea or several great ideas. I started, it's about 10 years ago, I would say, I started writing from titles.
Oh,
and I hadn't really done that, I guess, when I was really starting out as a songwriter, and kind of reverse engineering a song. So I've really tried to keep titles in mind. I can be really methodical when it comes to songwriting, as in, especially if there's a whole project or an album or an EP, I want to make sure, all the titles are different and they sound different, and none of the songs are in the same key, and they're not all in the same tempo, and they're not all in the same meter. I get real weird about that and try to really make it make sense in that way, at least for my taste. Or when I'm writing for a project for myself or for someone else, I'm always like, what's missing? Is it are we missing an up tempo? Are we missing, something in 3/4? So that sometimes I approach it from almost a clinical perspective.
Right.
And then other times ideas fall from the sky into my brain. And that's always cool, right?
That's an amazing feeling when that happens, when you're like, oh, and then you get the demo done, and then you listen back, you're like, whoa, where did that come from?
Where did that come from? Exactly.
Yeah. I love that feeling.
It came from
it's so awesome.
The clouds, or the divine source, wherever. But that is such a good feeling. I even had on this album that's out now, I think it's the 4th song on the album, You Don't. I had the whole chorus in a dream.
What? Really?
Yeah. So
you remembered it?
Well, I woke myself up in the middle of the night. This is the only time I've really successfully been able to do this. I wonder if anyone else has had song ideas in your dreams. This would be an interesting question, I think.
The only thing I've come up with, it was in that in between wake and dreams state.
Yep.
And it wasn't really a song idea. I was trying to figure out a name for my project.
Oh.
And I kept remembering it, but it would be, and then I'd fall asleep and I'd wake up, I couldn't remember it, but I knew I had a good idea. I finally remembered to write it down. I like woke myself up and wrote it down and then went back to sleep.
That's what you got to do.
That was the only time I've ever had it, but that's a lot easier than a full chorus. So I want to hear this. What's the story here?
Oh my gosh. I don't even know how it happened, because this was maybe like 8 years ago that I wrote this song, but I just had this. I don't think I had all the lyrics in my dream, but I definitely had the full structure of the chorus, and I had the full hook, which is you don't, like that. And and then the rest of the song was super easy to write because I really just had this catchy, swingy, chorus. And I just remember that I had the presence of mind. I don't know how, because when you're in a dead sleep, all you want to do is stay asleep.
Yes.
Right?
100%, especially me.
Oh, I'm with you on that one. I need my sleep. I'm like 7-8 hours a night, please. I don't have the rock star gene that a lot of other musicians have.
I don't have it either. I turn into a complete idiot if I don't get enough sleep. I'm just like
same. Zombie.
I'm just useless. Yeah.
Totally useless. I know it's not the greatest quality to have as maybe like a musician when I'm supposed to be like playing night gigs, but
right.
Sometimes I can get like a second wind, or especially if I'm performing, it's exciting, and I can power through.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm
totally
sleeping this night, and I somehow was able to reach for my phone in the dark and record.
You just like got to voice memos or something and
voice memos.
hummed it in there?
Voice memos is that is the jam.
You gotta love the voice memos. Everybody I know that writes songs now uses the voice memo app, because you're just out and about and something might hit you.
Oh.
And you're not gonna remember it.
Never.
You're not. You think you will. And you won't.
No, I never remember it. As soon as I say something, I forget it. So
well, I mean, even with these podcasts and scheduling and everything, this is how my scattered squirrel brain works. I get like, okay, we're doing it at what time? Putting it in my calendar right now.
Yes.
Because if I don't put it in there right now, then there's a good chance I'm going to forget. Even if I'm really excited about it, I have to do it immediately.
Yeah,
and
even
set
if
reminders.
Even if it's like the coolest event ever, you just won't remember it when the day comes, right?
I had reminders in my phone about NAMM, and we planned that trip for 6 months. I still had to put reminders in my phone. Hey, you got a flight tomorrow, pal.
Oh my gosh. And I never remember what time my flights are either. Do you ever do that? You book flights and then you're like, it could be 6 a.m. or it could be 10 p.m. I have no idea.
I'm very intentional while I'm booking it. I'm like, yes, I don't want to get up too early, or I don't want to be there if that's possible, smart. Obviously. Yeah. So it's usually like, unless there's just no other flights available, or it's an emergency or whatever, it's usually at like a normal-ish time. I try to shoot for that.
That's ideal.
It's also I'm fortunate that all my family lives around me, and usually somebody can drive me to the airport, and I don't want to make anybody get up at 4 a.m.
That's nice.
Yeah.
What a thoughtful guy.
I don't want to get up at 4 a.m. either.
Oh, I know. Same. Sleeping in, or at least sleeping until, a normal time. Having a nice slow morning, I drink morning tea. I don't know. Are you a coffee guy?
Yes and no. I since I've been doing this, I'm able to set my sleep schedule pretty well, so I'm getting enough sleep. I don't typically have coffee when I wake up. When I'll have it is sometimes it's like a pre-workout, or I'll have it like, oh, I've got that 2 to 4 p.m. like getting kind of tired feeling. That's when I'll have coffee. I very rarely have it in the morning anymore. Yeah.
Nice.
But because I have it rarely, it works so much better than it used to. I used to drink coffee all day and it didn't really do anything. But now a cup will actually wake me up, which is a nice change.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, you've figured out the hack. I never got into coffee.
It was an accident.
I'm the weird one.
Oh, really?
I'm just the
weird. You never got into it at all?
Never. I don't like it. It's so funny because my mom has like 4 cups a day.
Barista parlor is like my favorite coffee place that I've ever been to.
Wait, and that's where coffee comes from. I mean, a lot. Doesn't Starbucks come from Oregon?
Starbucks is a Washington, but they're
Washington.
everywhere.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I had a blonde moment.
It's the same kind of vibe, it
Pacific
really
Northwest.
is. But yeah, we're definitely known for being the coffee area. But I love Barista Parlor. Barista Parlor is incredible. They do a great job down there.
Wait, have you been to a place here called Portland Brew?
No.
I feel okay, I could be totally wrong, but I feel like that's a reference to Portland, Oregon.
Probably.
Okay, I'm going to have to look this up because I have to know this now. But yes, this is in Nashville. There's a bunch of them.
Portland Brew.
Portland Brew.
I'm talking to my dude Scott later, and he lives down there and is very much a coffee guy. I'm going to ask him about Portland Brew. See if he knows the story.
Ask him and then let me know, what he says.
100%.
Yeah.
So when you're playing live, we're gonna segue a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Do you typically play your acoustics? You got a couple electrics around you, and I'm a big electric player myself.
Yes.
What's your rig look like when you're like playing out?
Well, I have a really simple rig because I'm a big time acoustic player, and actually, my first guitar was. I guess I did forget to mention that. My first guitar was an electric guitar that I got.
Oh, it was?
Yes. Oh. I forgot to mention that. But yeah, my first guitar was an electric guitar. I thought we might also get Eddie in here because he can really tell us a lot about the electrics. Because a lot of these guitars are actually Steve Cropper's guitars.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, where's he at?
Yeah, where's Eddie? Oh, wait, can you see him back there? Oh, wait, let me try to scoot this.
I'm not sure. I see the window.
There
I can't see much beyond it. Oh, there he is. Oh, I see his hand.
There he is.
There he is. Now I can see him.
Okay, good.
I just saw. Here he comes.
Yeah, he's coming on in here.
Nice.
But yeah, it's so interesting. I really play. I've got my pedal tuner that I love. I don't have a lot of really fancy effects or anything. We do have this cool pedal board that we keep here at the studio. I can show you guys. For all of our electric players, we have a bunch of guys we love. Here, come on in here, E.
Alrighty.
Let's scoot this guitar over there. And here's your... Pardon while we just
here we go.
Switch around.
No, you're good. You're good.
Hey.
Hey, what's up, dude?
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah.
Hello there. I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, the Chase Bliss Audio Lossy. Lossy is a collaboration between Chase Bliss and Goodhertz. And it's meant to give you some control over those weird digital artifacts that come with very compressed audio. You're hearing it right now. All the changes that are taking place are strictly coming from my playing dynamics. I'm just interacting with the pedal and letting it do its thing. In some true stereo goodness. If you'd like some more details about Lossy, I'd invite you to head over to chaseblinssaudio.com. I think you're gonna like what you find.
Hey, what's up? My name's Lurk, and I'm the host of Lambgoat's Van Flip podcast. Every week I have in-depth conversations with bands from all over the scene, big and small. We also like to keep our finger on the pulse and showcase up-and-coming bands on the show as well. So come check out Lambgoat's Van Flip podcast.
We just started talking electric guitars, and she's surrounded by them. So she said you would be the person to talk about those things. What do we got here?
Well, through the years, working with Cropper, it's like we have our small studio production company and everything around. I'll turn those things off. And we just kind of get things that can work a whole lot of situations, right? And of course, the Cropper Fender Telly that we have is kind of a classic around here. But we also have... Years ago, when I started working with him, Peavy did when they was doing something called the Northwest All-Stars, which was a big kind of a promotional band with literally all these all-stars in it, kind of doing some tours. Okay. And Northwest was a promotion company for them. and they did an actual album. And from that, Peavy got connected with Cropper and said, man, we'd love to build you your own version of a telly. And that's where the Cropper Classic came from. Do I have that one over here? I have like the original that they designed for him that Cropper still plays today.
Oh, that's cool.
And the Cropper Classic is a wonderful piece because he came in and did it exactly the way that he wanted that guitar. And honestly, he's been playing it ever since. And it was really nice. So when he had hired me to build the studio for him, and Peavy said, well, we'll give you a console. That's kind of what started the whole thing. And the first console. And that's kind of where I learned how to engineer, mainly a piano player and arranger. And so it was really nice for them to give us that console. And we had it for several years. And then we wound up buying a Trident. And all of a sudden, I remember my guy that does all the wiring, we plugged in the 2-mix and he turned that on and he looked back at me and I was like, oh, oh, that's what that sounds like. And that was my favorite experience there, but it was God bless Peavy for giving me the opportunity. I love that I learned on that console, right? And then I got to really learn how to manipulate in just limited situations, but a wonderful product. But then all of a sudden graduated into some great sounding stuff. But with Cropper, we've got certain guitars that just
we like to keep here.
That we keep here that fill a lot of different lanes that we can.
Yeah. Did you see the Cropper? It says Cropper Classic on the headstock.
On the headstock. Yeah.
Did you see that? I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. It's a great looking guitar too. What are the pickups in that thing?
Oh, what are
now?
the
See, I love that they're going to ask me guitar questions because that's what I hire you crazy guys for. All I know is let's tune that damn thing.
That is
well for the audio listeners. It looks like I'll do my best analysis here because I don't know, but it looks like we've got a humbucker in the neck because of this. It's got a dual rail situation there. But then there's the same thing is stacked in the bridge.
Right.
I've never seen it before, which is why I asked the question because
that's kind of one of his little things that he does.
This is built how he likes it, right? To his specs. Yeah.
That's crazy cool.
One of my favorite things about Cropper is that he doesn't have a pedal board. He says he hands you his quarter inch and says, that is my pedal board. He gets everything here. And it's really amazing. It's just so neat. He's such an emotional player with his hands, just unreal. That's his pedal board. And that's something kind of unique and neat.
Yeah. Tell him about your PRS.
Oh yeah. I had this given to me years ago. And I was like, are you kidding me?
Look. And look at that.
A great example. We were just recording Wenzel, brand new friend, came in from Studio A and with his band. And what was wound up happening is for his type of music, they used every single guitar we had in here. Like this was the heavy duty rock going on. Then we wound up doing some slide stuff.
Oh yeah.
On this guitar right here.
Oh yeah, got a resonator. That's beautiful. Is that a National
resonator? Yeah, the thing is insane.
Yeah,
and it sounds so good. Sometimes I'll mic it with a big large diaphragm here and blend it with the signal from the amp. It's kind of a cool little thing, right?
I love that trick.
So old school, but that National is so nice. And so as soon as they saw we had that, they're like, wait a minute. Next thing over here comes the slides out. We're going crazy on it. This thing laid down some real heavy stuff. And of course, then you've got the tellies that are just such like bass, that's like fundamental, foundational. And it was really kind of fun. I was like, Steve wasn't here that day, but I was telling him, I said, Cropper, you have been so proud. All of his guitars are on this record, and that was kind of fun. That was pretty neat.
That's super cool. Well, now that you're both in here, here's a little bit of a sidebar question. So the you're talking about you guys have done a lot of work for TV and film and commercials and stuff. And I've talked to a few people recently that have been into that. And it's something that's really fascinating to me because the first thing that I heard back when I did my solo album here a couple years ago was like, man, this sounds like it should be in horror movies. And I was like, yeah, it kind of does, I guess, but I don't know anything about that world. So do you guys get people coming to you with ideas and requests? Are you putting stuff out in sync libraries? Like, if people are into that world or want to get into that world, how do you guys approach that?
Good question. Well, a lot of the contacts we had, I guess was when I lived in LA. That was there's a lot of that film scene, obviously. So I had made some connections living in Los Angeles that I kind of kept in contact with, and they actually were calling us when we started working together still, asking
Killer.
for, do you have a song like this? Do you have a song like that? And then when I lived in France also, I signed a publishing deal with Universal France. And I was really just doing library music. They would get me to write an album like this, or,
I think
write
a
for
shortcut
custom
for you, and what I learned is you're an artist, and there's something that these folks in these big library companies, and they're just they do a phenomenal job of this kind of formulated music that they push out. But when they need something special, at the end of the day, they're still just fans of music, and they hear an artist, and it, by definition, that's just unique, right? And they go, this, like Justyna this is what she can do for us. And that, some of that stuff you did for Killer Tracks, the Nashville, Tennessee album, and things like that were specific. And so it's nice to pitch yourself as an artist, and they could want a piece of that somehow. That's some of the, that's what I've kind of learned. How can you compete with kind of those big, beautiful factories that could just dump that out, But I think it's with that artist side, something that's truly unique. And so that's fun that we've been able to write specifically for things instead of them having to go through a whole bunch of like notes or, encyclopedias worth of music. They ask us specifically for this. And that's where
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, a good point is that a lot of the companies are actually acting as labels now, a lot of the sync companies. So they'll want to actually, because they want to own a piece of the whole pie, right? So they want to, own the master, and they want to own a part of the publishing. And so there are companies like that more and more that you can pitch yourself to. And they're always looking, to fill those libraries. Instead
of just a singular lane, they've got other places to move that music, right?
Yeah. Well, speaking of custom, we should tell them about I almost forgot about this, Blake. We did the theme song for the Tualatin Wine Valley.
Oh,
that was cool.
I almost forgot about that.
Yeah, well,
that's cool. I didn't know they had a theme song.
I've learned how to pronounce those words.
Oh, well, when I say theme song, I meant just for the promotional video. They had a promotional video for the, tourism.
And, like the tourism board or something?
Yeah. Right. And so we did we wrote the theme song for that. And we had...
Well, that's cool.
It was pretty cool.
That's very cool.
Yes.
That was something really
We do have some good wine around here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you do have some good
that
wine.
Pinot Noirs right there. We got to benefit from that.
Nice.
Yes, the perks.
Yeah, that was pretty cool, actually. There's an example of something that they wanted to put. I remember it was for all the flights. Do you remember the first ones come from Hawaii to Washington or whatever? And that's where they could play and advertise the valleys, Tualatin, Willamette valleys, and the Pinots. And they had us write something specific for that. And that was, that's fun to do. You see the pictures, you get the story, and you just start writing for that, Yeah,
that was another example. Our friend was the photographer and just said, hey, I have, I know Eddie and Justyna, and they, they are composers and writers, and he had recommended us. So a lot of times you can get cool referrals like that for your music. As long as people know that your music's out there, they know too. They can recommend you.
Gotcha. Very cool. Well, we are approaching the end of the podcast, and I got a couple classic questions that I like to wrap this up on. But before I do, I like to give the guests a chance to take the floor, plug anything you want to plug, shout out your grandma, anything you want to do right now. Like the floor is yours to kind of say whatever you want to a bunch of people.
Oh, cool. Well, I think I'd like to talk to everyone about where to find my music. Justyna Kelley. It's a Polish name, so it has a Y. It's Justyna. Kelley, Kelley. And I have a new album out called Canon that Eddie and I actually wrote most of the songs together. We produced the whole thing here at RCA Studios in Nashville, Tennessee.
Cool.
And it's out on a French label called EKP in Paris. And the single is called Seeing Stars. And I'll be doing a lot more promotional stuff for the single coming up. And yeah, please go check out the music and give me a follow. Like. Yeah, like it. Find me on Instagram, follow me, and can't wait to see everyone over there.
Cool. And the links for all that stuff will be in the show notes, people, so it's nice and easy to find. Just go down in the description of this on YouTube or in the show notes of your podcast player. It'll be right there. It'll be easy to find. So there you go. All right. Final questions. And then we got both of you here, and you're both going to have different opinions, I imagine. But the first question is, what is your favorite Boss pedal?
Oh, the ones that we down right here?
That's right. We got one right here that we like.
Yeah, we got the Blues Driver that we turned up to 10 the other day.
Or to 11.
I love the
11.
Blues
That's right. We turned it to 11. And that's
one goes
all
to 11.
over the record.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That thing killed. I was like, oh my gosh. And then guess what we did? We threw a bass guitar through it into our Victoria amp, right? Which is like a Tweed amp. And that thing sounded amazing. So that was kind of fun.
I've never used a Blues Driver on bass. Now I have something else to try later.
Oh.
Yes, we did.
Nice.
And it's it's going to be a big record too. I don't know if we're allowed to say where it goes.
I guess maybe not.
Okay.
It was for a movie. The song was for a movie. But I would say
for a movie. Oh.
Yes, coming out soon. We'll tell you more later. But my favorite pedal is it's the pedal tuner, and I have 3 of them. So
that's the most popular answer. Everybody loves the Boss tuners. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean,
because everybody's used one at some point, and they're great.
They're
indestructible. They do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love Boss pedals, so that's become a standard question for a long time now. And the people at Boss like that because they're cool people.
Heck yeah.
All right, final question. What is your favorite kind of pizza?
Oh, cheese. I'm boring.
Just straight up cheese?
I like cheese pizza. Oh, wait.
I like cheese pizza too.
Actually, that's not true. I'm going to change and say bacon cheeseburger pizza from Sir Pizza.
Oh my gosh, Sir Pizza. What
I've told you about that, I think.
That's right.
What's yours?
Where's that at?
Marguerite. I love a Marguerite. And then I love to go crazy and throw some real sausage or pepperoni on it.
Meat lovers. So Sir Pizza is in Nashville. And is it just in Nashville?
I don't know.
I think it's in Nashville. There's a bunch of locations. And I used to work there in high school. And they would let us eat whatever was on the buffet at the end of the day. And that's how I discovered bacon cheeseburger pizza. Because I never would have ordered it otherwise.
Nashville's got a couple of really good pizza spots that I love. One is, it's not just a pizza spot. It's an Italian place in general. But Napoli is somewhere I always hit. Their lasagna is insane.
Wait, Bella Napoli.
Yeah, Bella Napoli.
Yeah.
That's Cropper's favorite restaurant.
Yeah, that is. That's Steve Cropper's favorite.
Is it really?
Yeah,
I go there every time. Yeah, I love that place.
Well, when you get back, let's go.
We'll do Desano's too, which is the wood fire. If you know Desano's, that's insane.
I haven't been there yet. I've seen that one pop up on the list, so it's definitely one I gotta hit.
Once we get finished, Bella Napoli, we'll go to Desano's.
Yeah, right. We're gonna go get a pizza after this. So we're craving pizza now.
Smith and Lentz Brewing. Have you been there? They've got great pizza.
Oh.
It's kind of a newer thing. I think it popped up. They started, if I remember the story right, it's a newer brewery. Lockdown happened, so they started doing takeaway pizza. And their pizza was such a hit that it's like they've almost become as known for that as their beer. So that's a good one if you've never been there. And then 5 Points is classic.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
We don't know how
Like,
some of these
what?
places. Like, wait,
That's cool.
we need your Nashville list now.
Oh, I got a list.
Oh, send the list, please.
Will do. Well, hey guys, thank you for hanging out. I really enjoyed this conversation. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
And we'll take a pause here and see what kind of shenanigans we can get into on Patreon. Does that work for you?
Sounds great.
All right.
Thank you, Blake.
All right, everybody. Yeah, of course. Do my little outro here, and we'll get on our way. For Justyna and Eddie, this is Blake, and as always, folks, good luck and good tones. All right, folks, there you go. There's another episode in the can. Thank you as always. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for taking your time out of your busy day to hang out with me for this long. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. A couple little things. If you would like more of this conversation, just simply go over to patreon.com/tonemob, where for $5 a month, you can not only get access to the ad-free feeds for this podcast, but you can get extra bonus episodes, including this one with Justyna and Eddie. And I'm telling you, there is a hilarious story, an absolutely hilarious story, just sitting there waiting for you over on Patreon, as well as the ad-free feed for this very podcast. Thank you so much for everything, folks. Make sure you check out Justyna's music, and I've got links to all of their stuff down in the show notes of this podcast. And one more quick thing. I am posting all of this over on YouTube now. So YouTube finally allowed RSS feeds. RSS feeds, if you don't know, are the way that podcasts get published to all the podcast players. So you can go there if YouTube is your preferred platform, which I'm guessing you're listening this deep on this episode, probably doesn't matter a whole lot to you, but on the off chance it does, you can go over to YouTube and there are two feeds. There is the Tone Mob podcast video feed and Tone Mob like regular podcast feed. You can kind of tell the difference. If you just want to listen on YouTube, because that's the normal platform you absorb things on, the podcast will be there every Monday, as it is on every single other platform, because YouTube finally accepted RSS feeds. So thank you, YouTube overlords, for accepting, 1990 whatever technology. But that's not the point. The point is the podcast is fully available over on YouTube if that's where you like to listen. And the video versions are going up as quickly as I can possibly do them. I've got some help with that now, and it's becoming much more consistent. So anyway, all that to say, wow, I'm tired, and I can't believe I've rambled this long. I am going to say good night to you. Thank you for everything. And as always, folks, I'll talk to you on the internet very, very soon. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.
Ever wonder what a punch from Elton John feels like?
Or how you'd cope with having turned down the chance to be in Nirvana?
Or what signal Keith Richards gives when he wants you to get the hell out of his hotel room?
Fans of Too Much Effing Perspective don't have to wonder, because they've heard these exact stories and a jillion others on our podcast. I'm Alex Hoffman, former tour manager for Radiohead.
And I'm musician and comedy writer Alan Keller. On the TMEP show, we get guests like Nancy Wilson from Heart, Jeremiah Freites from the Lumineers, and Modern Family's Julie Bowen to tell us things they may have only shared with their therapist, clergy, or a TMZ stringer.
So join us on Too Much Effing Perspective. That's EFFING Perspective. The only podcast you crank up to 11.
Hey everyone, this is Tuck from Fit for a King, an off-road minivan. Every week I bring you fun interviews alongside your favorite metalcore entertainers with my new podcast, Get Tucked. Join me every Monday with bands like Counterparts, Crystal Lake, like Moths to Flames, and many more. We play unsigned and undiscovered bands, deep dive into each artist's history, and of course provide the greatest breakdowns in current metalcore. Tune in to Get Tucked every Monday, out now through Sound Talent Media.